I spoke to God today, and he said he's ashamed. And I spoke to the devil today, and he swears he's not to blame. Hey, y'all, how you doing, Sergeant Soggy? Whoop, got my notes in there. Whoop, yeah. I want to talk to you today about, is it biblical for Christians to own, carry, and use firearms? Since we're in the bunker and from my surroundings, you can probably give it a pretty good guess as to what side I'm going to fall on. But I'm going to back it up a little bit, at least. Now, in this crazy, upside-down, weirdo world we live in, there's a few things you got to remember. One, what God does to people. Blesses them, judges them, chastises them, loves them, saves them, grants mercy. Then there's what the devil does to people. Yeah, he's the father of lies, and he can't make you do anything that you don't want to do on your own. He's like that bad friend that always gets you in trouble. He just keeps pushing and pushing. And he's also referred to as the great accuser. He'll go before God. You ever read the book of Job? Yeah, he'll bring your case up before the Lord and try to convince the Lord that you're not salvageable, I guess would be the word, because basically in Job, the devil says, well, of course he worships you. You gave him everything, and he's rich and all this, but you take everything that away, and he'll curse you to your face. And God pretty much said, hey, game on. Let's see. So, and then where we're living, we're supposed to be in the world, but not of the world. And since we're in the world, we got to deal with the world. So, what is, and then the third part of this is what man does to man. What do we do to each other? All the rapings and the killings you see on the TV and the wars and rumors of wars and all that. And then there's some charity work, you got to take care of the widows and orphans. But there's usually a politician back in the shadow with his hand open somewhere. Well, I want to share a few things with you. I know you're not supposed to crack your face on camera. It itches. All right. So, Matthew 5:9. So, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. All right, if everything's all hunky-dory, why do you need peacemakers? No, I ain't got a pacemaker. I said peacemaker. Because of the craziness out there. Oh, but I trust God, and He will protect me and save me, and yeah, I trust God with everything I've got too, up to and including my soul and my eternal address. But that doesn't mean that my neighbor out there doesn't get a wild hair up his ass and start shooting up the place. Or, that's where people doing to people comes in. You got to protect yourself. You got to do things. Do you wear a seatbelt in the car? I don't, because when I was a little kid, we didn't even have seatbelts in cars. And then when they started putting them in, we just never wore them. But when we were kids, we rode around in the back of pickup trucks and played with lawn darts and drank out of garden hoses. So, and we're just cut from a different cloth, I guess. But if there's no trouble, no peace, no strife, why do you need a peacemaker? Well, let's look at this in Luke Luke 11:21. When a strong man armed keepeth his palace, his goods are at peace. Well, if you're a believer in Christ, we're called to be kings and priests. So, when a strong man armed keepeth his palace, your home's your castle, right? His goods are at peace. You think that's just your salt and pepper shakers and your TV? I don't know. My family's pretty good to me. TV can be replaced. Mom and the boys can't. I'd even kick up a little bit of dust over my dogs. So, when a strong man armed. Let's try 1 Timothy 5:8. Let's see what that. But if any provideth not for his own, and especially for those of his own home, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Now, most people say that, well, that means, yeah, you get off your fat butt and go get a job. Get a haircut and get a real job. Remember that song way back when? Yeah. Anyways, but, is that the only thing you provide? Monetary income? And think about it, back when this was written, they didn't have big, huge factories and corporations and air-conditioned offices and all this stuff. Most people lived on the farm or did some kind of agricultural work. If you didn't own the farm, you worked for somebody who did, and you worked on his farm. If a man doesn't provide, well, you got to provide security, don't you? That's part of providing, isn't it? Oh, here, dear, I love you. Here's my paycheck, and I'm going to leave all the windows and doors and everything unlocked and the keys in the ignition and a big red sign out in the yard that says, rob me first, please. Right? Yeah, no. And if you go back into the Old Testament, when God counted the people, he counted men able for war, men able to fight. Now, you think they just went to the armory and just put all that stuff up? And, like in the army, when you go and draw your weapon for weapons training that day, and then at the end of the day, you turn it back into the armory and you just go home. And doing all that farm work, and David, he says he killed a lion, says he killed a bear. I believe it. Now you think he did it? No, I bet he had some kind of sword or knife, or he had that sling with him. There's a little bit of hand-to-hand combat in there with a weapon. All right, we're not so much knives and swords today, but what's the equivalent? Firearms. It's just a weapon of choice. If they had firearms back then, they would have used them. Nehemiah 4:14. If you don't know the story of Nehemiah, it's really kind of cool, because after the 70-year exile, Nehemiah goes back to build up the walls of Jerusalem, and all the local warlords around him, they're getting, oh no, we can't be having this. And they built that wall in 52 days with a sword in one hand and a hammer in another. It's really an amazing book. You guys ought to go read it. But Nehemiah 4:14. And I looked up, and rose and said unto the nobles and to the rulers and to the rest of the people, You know, I went and talked to the mayor and the city council and all the, the rest of the townsfolk, everybody. Be ye not afraid of them. They're getting surrounded by the bad guys. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, and fight for your brethren, your sons and your daughters, and your wives, and your house. I'm thinking God's telling them to be armed. You got some local warlords trying to muscle in, and if you know the story, it's really cool. And you got to be armed while you're rebuilding your house because of the local thugs, the hoodlums running around, people that want to do you mischief. I think the Lord's telling us to be armed. Now, this is what Jesus tells us. The man himself, the man of the hour, of every hour, of every day. Oh, by the way, this episode of Sergeant Soggy is brought to you by the Creator, the Almighty, the God of heaven and earth, and everything that's in it, and above it, and around it, everything you can see, and things that you can't see. Anyways, this is Jesus' words. Then said he unto them, he's talking to his disciples. They're in the garden right before he gets arrested and ultimately crucified. And he said unto them, but now he that hath a purse, a wallet, checkbook, credit card, let him take it, and likewise his script. Oh, script, letters, writings. Oh, they're missionaries. They're going to go out and travel. And he that hath no sword, not some, not, as long as there's one in town or something like that. He said, and he who hath no sword, everybody, let him sell his clothes or garment and buy one. Even down to selling your clothes. I know you heard it, cloak or coat, whatever. Sell something and go buy a gun to defend yourself. Because if you don't defend your wife, your husband, your kids, your neighbor, what's the greatest commandment? Love the Lord with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. And love your neighbor as yourself. I'm taking that as a commandment to be armed. We're not sheeple, turn the other cheek. Now, that's when people just insults, just talking smack. It's things that aren't important. But if you're physically in danger, why would the Almighty, the giver and lover of life, not want you to defend yourself? Oh, because it's God's will that I'm attacked. Not really. Maybe it's God's will that you take that attacker out so he doesn't get anybody else. Yeah, there's a story of this kid in college. He's a Marine reservist. And his professor's really downgrading God. Just really downgrading God. And finally this Marine gets up and he's had enough, and the professor said something to the fact, if anybody can show me anything from God, anything out of the Bible that can prove it, I will backtrack immediately. And so this kid gets up and he goes over there and he just snatches that pastor or that professor's nose. And he said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And the kid says, "Ringeth of the nose bringeth blood." Yeah, but that didn't come from God. God was busy, so he sent me. Think about that. Somebody's kicking in your door, you're going to be, Lord protect me, Lord protect me, Lord protect me. It's like my other Bible study. I can lean on a shovel and pray for a hole, but it ain't going to show up. Now, God could intervene, but maybe he wants you to do something. Maybe he wants you to do it. Why do you wear a seatbelt? If you get in a car wreck, God's going to save you and give you a new car, right? Why do you got a fire extinguisher in your kitchen? If you burn down the house, God's just going to give you a new house, right? It's just going to just magically appear? No. You don't work, you don't eat. If you don't do certain things don't happen. And the last time food just fell out of the sky was during the Exodus. I want to talk to you about men, because the church has it today that men are supposed to be soft and weak and no. Think about the patriarchs in the Old Testament. I mean, Abraham, after his nephew got kidnapped, he took 300 dudes and wiped out 5 armies. Yeah, he was a little weak, just soft-spoken. Oh, praise the Lord. I love you, love you, love you, love you. You sit in the front row there at church and everything's all peachy king and you got your soft pastel shirt on and your man bun going on and all that other stuff. No, these men were hardcore. They were hardcore. Now, Matthew 11, starting in verse 7, I didn't write down the whole thing, it's just, but Jesus is talking about John the Baptist here, all right? He says, "What, you went out into the wilderness to see a reed shaken in the wind? Is that what you went out there to see? A man of soft raiment in pretty clothes? But what you went out to see is a prophet. In my words, a man of God, a man of Elohim, a warrior." How many times in the Bible does God refer to faith? You got put on the armor of faith and refers to things in a military fashion. We live in a soft society, and this is not godly. Men are men, women are women, and we hold our own. My grandmother and my great-grandmother, rest their souls, they were some tough women. My mom was pretty badass herself. But my great-grandmother, she came over here from Poland and helped my great-grandfather. They had like 11, 14 kids, something crazy like that. And they ran a dairy farm. Do you think she's sitting inside knitting all day? I don't think so. People need to be tough. And you need to take care of yourself. You got to have tools. And a firearm is just a tool. It's a tool of protection. Now, this isn't biblical, and forgive me if I pronounce it wrong. I know somebody out there will know the true pronunciation, but I ain't got no teeth and I'm a bit of a hillbilly from a swamp, so I'm alright. Oh, wait a minute. I prefer redneck. My Yamato Mashui, or something like that. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. You need to prepare for things, and if you never use it, praise the Lord. And how do you know you're not supposed to be putting stores back and having ways of protecting yourself and because your neighbor gets taken out? Or something bad happens to your neighbor and you got to go defend them or you got to help feed them. You know, some kind of natural disaster. Gee, we haven't heard anything about those, have we? Oh, Maui, L.A., East Coast, South Carolina. No, 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 nothing, nothing, nothing. Now, that doesn't mean that all your work may not be destroyed by whatever's coming at you, but at least you tried. It's something, you know, you're supposed to help your neighbors and widows and orphans first. But I'm going to close with this, just a little bit. Reverend Jonas Clark and Deacon John Parker, Lexington Green, April 19th, 1775. In a few days, that will be 250 years ago. Reverend Jonas Clark, it was his congregation, 70 men, townsfolk. And let's see, John Parker, Deacon John Parker, he trained the men of the town, of the congregation, about 70 men. He trained them militarily. He was a colonel in the French and Indian Wars. And Jonas Clark, great grandfather or something like that, Lewis and Clark expedition. He ran the church, you know, and he helped fund all this stuff through the church and whatnot. And in the early morning hours of April 19th, 1775, the British Redcoats were coming in to Lexington for a tea party. Oh, wait a minute. No, we already had that. For breakfast. No. They were coming in to disarm the local population. They were coming to take their weapons. And 70 men, approximately 70 men from that congregation, stood up against, up to, nobody knows for sure, you get different numbers, it's between 500 and 700. Still a big number for 70 men. Regular British soldiers. They were a professional army. And those 70 people, I'm not going to say they were ragtag, but they weren't professional. They were farmers and you know, whatever. Yeah, I'm sure one made shoes, another one made barrels. Somebody ran the inn. I don't know. They were just normal townfolk. And those 70 men stood up against the greatest army on the planet at the time. And that's what we know as the shot heard around the world. And if it wasn't for that preacher and that deacon training their congregation, Psalms 144:1, that the Lord trains my hand for war. If it was not for this preacher and this deacon training the local townfolk, we might still be subjects to the crown of England. That's where your Second Amendment comes from. And no, it has nothing to do with hunting. Because back then, everybody hunted for meat. Yeah, you had livestock, but, you know, sometimes you wanted to supplement. Everybody went hunting. And up until the mid-1960s, You could mail order guns right out of Wards and Sears and Roebuck. You could mail order them right out of catalogs and send them to your house. And we did not have the problem that we have today. Guns are not the problem. People are the problem. It's a heart problem. It's a sin problem. Do yourself a favor. Go get yourself a firearm. Get proficient. Get training. Talk to people. Learn how to use it. Get good at it. Buy one for everyone in your house. I personally believe that everyone over the age of 18 shall be armed, shall carry, concealed carry, or open carry if you prefer. I also believe that everybody upon completion of high school should do 2 years in the military. And then we get rid of a lot of this woke silliness. So, to answer the question, is it biblical for you to be armed? Not only is it biblical, going back to Luke 22, Luke chapter 22, verse 36, Jesus is commanding you to be armed. This isn't about being vengeful and, oh, just because you own a gun, you're a mass murderer. No. You're defending yourself against would-be bad people. So that's all I got for you. Whether you believe it or not, to me it's not open to debate. You're doing the Lord's will when you are taking steps to ensure you can defend yourself and your family, just like you would with an insurance policy, just like you would with a strong house, seatbelts, well-running cars. All these things can kill you. The weather can kill you. Falling apart car can kill you. Be a strong person in the Lord and start taking responsibility and quit being so wimpy. And if you think the men of God are soft-spoken, limp-wristed, fishy handshake, man bun wearing, fanny pouch carrying, read the Old Testament. Please. May the good Lord bless you. And until we meet again, keep your powder dry.